Hello, welcome back to another Onkruid video. Welcome back to my badly lit room where I'm just surrounded by laundry hanging to dry. Not the most professional surroundings you'll ever see me in, but it's what comes out of my mouth, not the place where I'm sitting, and that's important in these types of videos, I think. I hope you see it that way too. It's been a while since I've made a video on The Gift of Therapy by Yalom, this amazing book that I'm slowly but surely deep diving through together with you guys on this Onkruid channel, making episodes on every single tip in the book, 85 in total. I have to recap a bit for myself, and the beautiful part about the timing is that the video that I need to make right now is a little recap. It's a recap of tip 11 up until tip 20, so without further ado, let's get back into it. Tip 11, the therapeutic act, not the therapeutic word. Try to learn from your clients and learn from them in a sense of asking them what really helped them throughout the therapy. More often than not, you will realize that they don't talk about the content related stuff. They don't talk about that masterful intervention you did. They don't talk about that crazy insight you all of a sudden brought them to about their childhood and how it's still influencing them now. What they often remember, what they often talk about when you ask them what really helped them is something relational, is something related to the climate between the two of you and something you did, not something you said. It's giving them a new appointment that they had to cancel last minute. It's giving them a call when you know they're going through a tough time. It's sending them an email the day before their exam. Make sure you talk about your client's boundaries with them when doing this though, but the therapeutic act is more important than the therapeutic word. Tip 12, engage in personal therapy. According to Yalom and according to some other people like Greenberg, for example, as well, going into personal therapy is one of the most important things you can do in your education of becoming a therapist. You are your own instrument. You need to learn how to take care of that instrument. You need to learn how you distance yourself safely from your own emotions, how those emotions influence your life, and just what your life's all about. Me personally, I'm a big advocate for also having to go into therapy in an existential format. What do you really want to do with your life? What do you want to make out of your life? And how does your job as a therapist fit into that little dream of yours? I think that's an important part for us therapists to consider, and I think it can be helpful to do that with a more experienced therapist kind of looking in from above. You should get to know yourself in those manners, but you should also look at your blind spots, your dark sides, your weaknesses, your shadow, as Jung might call it, and there's no better place to do that than in your own therapy. Yalom himself has participated in many forms of therapy throughout his life, and I just want to quickly mention this again because rereading this kind of shakes me up again. The most interesting format that he ever attended was a naked group marathon therapy where they had 24 hours of therapy where the entire group was naked. So it sounds so absurd. Go into a wide variety of therapies throughout your life. Different forms of therapy for different phases. Me personally, I'm already in a group therapy because of my education. It desires me to do so. It kind of dictates me to do so. It's part of my curriculum, I can get out of it, and Yalom tells us that that's already beautiful, that's nice, but it's still different from that individual therapy that is purely focused on you, because in the group with people that you know already, dynamics are always going to be different. Tip 13, a therapist has many patients. A patient, or client rather, or traveler has only one therapist, only one fellow traveler. It's an unavoidable characteristic of the type of relationship you build with your client, that they will spend more time thinking about you, fantasizing about possible conversations in between sessions than you will be thinking about them. Clients sometimes struggle with this though, because they feel less important, they feel unseen. I've been wondering how to tell you all of this stuff during our hiatus between the two sessions, and you seem to just remember that I exist the moment I walk into the therapy room. There's this balance, but you need to make sure that clients realize that that's the way the cookie crumbles. That's just the name of the game. That's how the therapeutic relationship is formed. Yalom advises his clients to think about it in a sense of a classroom with a teacher in front. Of course, that teacher is not going to have the capacity to have the same individualized attention for every single student, and he's not going to think about his students that much when he goes home after work, maybe a little bit, but while those students, they have one teacher that year, maybe in kind of elementary schools and stuff like that, so they will spend a lot of time thinking about their one teacher that has influenced their day a lot that day. Yalom also talks a bit about Freud and his megalomaniac ideas of like, I have to influence my clients' lives. It's important and it's great that they think about me in between sessions, and of course I don't think about them. And that's weird, but the truth is that of course you need to impact your client enough through your therapeutic relationship to change them. So there has to be some of that impact for sure, but Freud just always goes crazy. Yalom also talks about his healthy self-disclosure, about him being a client himself and having similar feelings as his clients, like also thinking more about his therapist than his therapist was thinking about him, probably, and how he dealt with it, which was acceptance. Little side note, Yalom also tells us that if we do think about our clients in between sessions, if we have a dream about our client, for example, we should probably tell our client if it is beneficial towards the process of the client, which is kind of the rule you need to adhere to for every form of self-disclosure. Tip 14 is where Yalom really starts to get into the importance of working with the here and now, which kind of forms the foundation for the next couple of tips in a row. Tip 14, the here and now, use it, and you guessed it, use it. What is happening between you and the patient in the here and now, in the relationship as it is right now, in this session, that is the most important key to work with towards therapeutic success. Tip 15, why use the here and now? Why is it so important? Why does Yalom want to devote so many tips and such a big part of his book towards it? It is based upon two of his assumptions, or two broader assumptions that he adheres to as a therapist. And one is that he sees the interpersonal relationships of people as something of vital importance, also important in therapy. The other one is the conceptualization of therapy as a social microcosm. We need others and we need to feel connected. We are a social species. We can't live without other people. So those interpersonal relationships are really of vital importance for every single aspect of our life almost. Individuality is also important, of course. Both of them need to be in balance. As Otto Rank puts it, you need to constantly swing between that pendulum of like connectedness and individuality or autonomy. The assumption about the therapy being a social microcosm kind of states that transference will happen. You will experience their pathological shyness, their narcissism, their aggressiveness. You will experience those things causing interpersonal problems for them outside of therapy, in therapy as well. And the therapeutic relationship is one of those important relationships we thrive on as humans, and this is really a formative one where we can try and change the way they approach relationships outside of therapy as well. So in the here and now, in the therapy session, the challenges that the patient faces towards their growth and towards their actualization and towards becoming the person they want to be happen. So you need to be able to work in your relationship right here, right now with what is going on. Tip 16, using the here and now. Grow rabbit ears. If you have developed your rabbit ears adaptively, or your little antennae in an adaptive manner, however you want to formulate it, whichever metaphor you want to use, you will be able to detect a lot of information from just one stimulus, and a lot of different information at that, according to which client is reacting to that one stimulus, because every client response will be different. You being 5 minutes late for a session, you having a cold therapy room that you let them into. Some people might say something about it. Some people will just keep their coat on and not say anything about it. That already tells you something about how open your client is towards you, for example. Is he feeling okay with giving you some critique like, man, this therapy room is cold, can't you turn on the heater? Or is he just going to be like, oh, I guess my therapist likes the room to be cold, I'll just adapt and sit here silently as the good little client I am. And then I just quickly want to restate the beautiful quote that Yalom has in this tip. Therapy is like a live Rorschach test. Patients project their own observations, their attitudes, their meanings, their experience towards what is happening in the here and now in the therapy. They do it unconsciously, but if you develop those rapid ears, you can detect it. Tip 18, working through issues in the here and now. This is where Yalom gets into his interpersonal therapy domain, which he is really well known for. You use the here and now to then discuss the underlying deeper layer that is actually at the root of what is happening in the here and now. A small momentary observation of your client, for example, saying sorry for nothing a couple of times can lead to you being like, how do you think that makes me feel when you do that? And the client being like, I think that makes you annoyed with me. And then you can start experiencing like, don't you think that's what happens in a lot of your relationships when you're constantly saying sorry like that? The ball is rolling, you know, therapy has started. Yalom also mentions a quote of Sartre in this tip that has stuck with me since then. I know that it's been a while since I've delved into the book, but this is still fresh in my mind. A quote by Jean-Paul Sartre: introspection is always retrospection. We're working in the here and now. We're trying to get the client to introspect a bit, to look into themselves of like, what's happening here, but it's always retrospection in the sense of like, what's happening here is often related to what has been happening way back already. For example, what happened between them and their parents, between them and friend groups, between them and ex-partners. It's always looking back a bit while you're looking at the here and now. Tip 19, the here and now energizes therapy. A group and an individual client too, they come to life in the therapy when the focus shifts from this content, theoretical, abstract focus to what's really happening here in the therapy, what's happening between us, what's happening between group members, what's the more dynamic process vision of this session. This is what encounter groups are all about. Group sessions where patients or participants purely talk about what is happening in the here and now. When you say that, I feel this happening right here, and I relate that to what Josie was saying earlier, and then Josie can be like, you shut the fuck up and keep my name out of your mouth, because when you say my name, I get transported back to, that's all working in the here and now, and you already hear, whew, that's quite energetic, that's quite some spice, some sass Josie got there. An interesting example of such a here and now focus can be found in Yalom's book Every Day Gets a Little Closer, where he is very, very real and direct with his client Ginny. They both write after sessions reports, and that gets bundled into a book. They work a lot in the here and now, and they work a lot with, like, when you do this, that makes me think this, that makes me feel this, I want to do this, constantly interchanging that kind of information with each other. And then tip 20, use your own feelings as data. You need to learn to listen to your own feelings in the moment, in the here and now, to be able to use that as valuable data in the therapy session. What does this client really elicit in me? Am I irritated right now? Am I finding it difficult to listen to them? Am I enthralled and at the tip of my seat, really adhering to every single word that person is saying? What does that say about me? Was I looking forward to this therapy session starting? How do I feel now that it has started? Do I want this to be over as quickly as possible? Am I looking at the clock a lot more often than with my other clients? You need to develop those rabbit ears for what's happening internally as well. The client might evoke some of the feelings you are experiencing as a therapist in some of their relationships outside of therapy as well. And talking about this can be very, very important, both for you and your client. Can we look at this together, this feeling that I'm feeling? Do you feel something of that as well? Could it be correct? Do you experience that in other relationships as well? How do you think it happened? Why am I disconnected? Make it accessible for the both of you. Tolerate the taboo of talking about, you're boring me right now, what's happening here? This is a hard one though. I read this in my own thoughts about the tip. Easier said than done. Telling your client you're boring me right now, oof, I already feel the chicken skin coming up my throat tightens up a bit. That doesn't feel nice to do. But hey, sometimes that short-term confrontation is gonna lead to long-term benefits for the client for sure. All right, that was tip 11 up until 20. Feels great to be back into this. I hope I can keep it going again a little bit, but I have a lot of reading to do for the therapy education as well. It's gonna be a balancing act. Either way, I missed my homie Yalom, so it's great to be back. See you in the next one. Bye-bye.